everyone. So today we are going to discuss a bulk resume screening that we built with N8n using cloud, which goes us cloud group interns, me, Vishal, Alav, Danish, and Adrian. So the goal of the project was to streamline and improve the resume screening process to make it using cloud tools, automation, and AI, obviously. So the project automates resume screening from submission to KPI reporting. So firstly, we started off by making a web page where recruiters can submit their resumes into an S3 bucket. And then it will go into an auto trigger, which is scheduled to automatically automatically process these resumes. Originally, it says to 5 minutes. We changed it to 5 hours to help with the AWS bedrock cost. You can, but for the demo, we changed it down to 30 seconds just to expedite it a little bit. We then used N8n, a low-code automation tool, to orchestrate the workflow. We moved on by summarizing we summarized the data by exporting it to Google Sheets for easy access and reporting. And then finally, we visualized the key performance metrics on the dashboard to help recruiters track screening effectiveness. So some real-life use cases is that it's simplified hiring. It cuts down resume screening from hours to minutes, enabling HR to focus on top candidates and see who they would really want to hire. It improves talent management. It can also help be used to evaluate current employees to see if they could be eligible for raises or some sort of promotion. Support technical roles. The AI is trained to evaluate technical skills and certifications that recruiters might overlook, ensuring fairness and consistency throughout. And the biggest benefit of the project is that we were able to create a repeatable, scalable system that eliminates manual screening and enables data-driven hiring decisions. So whether you're hiring one person, 10 people, or 10,000, the workflow remains the same. They're automated, consistent, and intelligent. So the AWS services we used was Amazon S3 for storing the resumes, DynamoDB to help track per process file and store metadata, IAM to help manage secure access, and then Bedrock to generate for using generative AI models to score resumes intelligently. And the coding languages we use was HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for building the web interface, and then we used Python for backend logic and integrations and this helped bridge the front-end interaction with the backend automation and AI processing. So now I'll pass it off to Adrian.
Okay, so this project is a little bit different from the other ones because the main resource we used this time around was N8n, which is an automation workflow tool that we used to develop this resume automation screening. As you can see from the start, we have a trigger, which is scheduled for every 30 seconds just for the purpose of this demo. So when that happens, there's a it gets the job description that is listed in our S3 bucket, and then it processes every single resume that has been submitted in a folder with pending applications. And then it is, for each resume, it is screened by AI, and it's given a score, skills match percentage, experience match percentage, summary, and overall recommendations. And after that, the fields are processed and then submitted to two output sources of Google Sheets and DynamoDB. And then to avoid any duplications, we just delete that file from the pending folder. So the overall methodology that we used was for data sourcing and staging. The first thing we used was we basically submitted the application and it goes into the pending folder where yet to be processed applications will go through the workflow. Then at the very end, we created Google Sheets to store all that data as well as the KPI results. We also created a low-code automation workflow. So we designed and built the entire end-to-end pipeline visually using N8n. And we also implemented that looping mechanism that you saw before, which processes the resumes in bulk. And we also configured Amazon Bedrock as the API that would take those resumes and then store everything. And then we engineered a scoring prompt, which allowed it to do so. And finally, we just submitted the results to Google Sheets and DynamoDB. So now for the overall demo part. So I'm going to start by submitting two applications. First one one of our team members, he submitted his resume or shared it to me, so I'm just gonna submit that. So that one was successfully submitted. And then I'm also going to share my resume as an example. And then that was also successfully submitted. And as you can see here, there's nothing in here yet. I just have to refresh it. And then these two resumes appear. Now, like after 30 seconds, if you can see here, it'll go through this automation workflow that I previously explained, and it will basically do the entire process and send it here to this spreadsheet. So we already put some dummy data in there before for like testing. We used previous resumes. So this first sheet shows like the overall, like the individual scores for each candidate. And then we also created a second spreadsheet, which shows like overall KPI statistics, like total resumes, average score, percent above threshold, and top candidates. So right now it seems to be, so I set it for 30 seconds. So it usually takes some time. So just to save time, I'm probably just going to execute it manually. Okay, so it turns out it already submitted before I started manually executing. So yeah, before I pressed the execute workflow button, it already went through the workflow and it submitted the results from mine and Alap's resume into this Google spreadsheet. And then here it would automatically update the overall results. So if you remember before, the total number of resumes was 6, now it'd be 8 because of the 2 resumes that were just added. Some other extra features that we added were, we also created an extra workflow for sending emails. Basically I set it to every 5 minutes, so that's why realistically it would only be daily. So yeah, you wouldn't see a whole lot of emails like this. But yeah, it basically says something like, hello, here's the results of today's resume screening batch, total resumes processed 6, average candidate score, and the rest of that. And then one more thing that we'd like to add or share is our dashboard. So I'm just gonna pull that up. We used Streamlit for our graphical user interface. Okay, so this is the dashboard, which basically shows the overall analysis of all the resumes that were submitted. So it shows the overall score distributions and how many people got that score. Basically, the overall score is produced by taking the average of the experience percentage and skills match percentage. We've created a quartile chart, a box plot for the experience match and skills match here. And you can see the medians for experience match are 60, and then skills match is 80. It also shows like the top candidates and like the recommendation, like the action. So it shows summaries, like Emily Chen is a strong candidate with direct relevant experience, machine learning engineering. And then it shows like the overall, like the overall final decision, proceed to interview, consider, or reject. And then recommendation breakdown, we also made a pie chart, which basically shows the distribution between the number of people who were like either considered or rejected and the number of people who were asked to interview. So that's basically the main part of the demo. Some challenges that we did face through this were connecting credentials for AWS and Google Drive. AWS was slightly easier as we just had to create a new like IAM user and take those important credentials like access key and secret access key, and then import them into N8n. And that's how it was able to access all the AWS services. Google Drive was a little bit more difficult. It was a bit longer of a process, so we had to create in OAuth 2 client ID, and then add like URIs, and then add team members as test users to authorize a connection with any of Google Cloud services. Also, the initial idea, since we have S3, the initial idea was to, and immediately when a resume was sent, it would send an automatic trigger anytime there were more resumes into S3, and then it would get processed inside the N8n workflow automatically. So unfortunately, there wasn't any direct S3 trigger made available, so we had to use an alternate by taking a schedule trigger, which would automate the workflow every 30 seconds. And then finally, we wanted to prevent processing the same resume twice. So what we did was we created a pending folder, which all the newly submitted resumes would be sent there. And then once it was processed and then stored in the database and the spreadsheet, it would be deleted just to make sure it wasn't processed twice. And that's pretty much our presentation.
Good. What's the background? People on phones. This is really good work. Could you go back to your N8n flow?
Yes.
And what are the key configurations you have done in N8n? And how do you trigger with S3? What listeners you added?
Okay, so basically, we have from the start, we have like a schedule trigger. Basically just automates the workflow every 30 seconds. If I can just like open here. So yeah, every 30 seconds. And then we have this job description where it takes, we provided the file key where it takes like the job description. And then this module takes the job description and extracts it and processes like the important text in there. And then for list resumes, we basically have another node and then provided the key where all the resumes, the newly sent resumes are. And then this is where we create the loop, where the whole automation flow happens. So we added this code node, which was because there seemed to be issues with it processing the file key. So we used this just to make sure that the file key that the download file node was receiving was accurate and wasn't receiving any glitches. So then it would download each resume file and then extract the important text from it. And then from there, we prompted the LLM to basically review, and we told it, oh, you're an expert HR recruiter, and you basically have to review each resume and then give the overall scores, skills, experience match, summary, and recommendation. This is the fields where we basically took the important text from the LLM and extracted the important fields that were received from there. And then we put two outputs for this. One was Google Sheets, which I shared. And then the other was the Dynamo database. I don't think I showed that, but if I just refresh the screen, it should be there.
What is your key?
Sorry?
What is the primary key here? DynamoDB?
Resume ID.
Okay.
So yeah, those are the two newly added resumes that I sent in. That's what was used to source the data and then create the dashboard using Streamlit. And then at the very end, it would just delete the file from pending.
Very good. No, this was very interesting project, and we do the similar thing at work. And I thought maybe you guys will get benefit because this is, if you ask me, the highest hot cake in the market is this right now.
It's completely different than whatever.
Last I would say last 6-7 months, this is becoming we call agenticai. So there are agents which you do that. So great. People on phone, you can see that. I know some of you mentioned, hey, this is long project, complex project. None of this, I think you guys were knowing, right, before you start. You still did it. So awesome work.